The Silent Watchers. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of Research Station Epsilon 7 and felt the gentle vibration of the massive structure rotating through space. The station floated in neutral territory, a gleaming testament to galactic cooperation where the brightest minds from dozens of species worked together on projects that would benefit all civilized worlds. At least, that was the idea. Elena adjusted her glasses and returned to her workstation, where streams of data flowed across multiple screens. As the human representative on the energy shielding project, she spent most of her time quietly analyzing patterns, while her alien colleagues engaged in animated discussions about theoretical applications. The other species seemed to view humans as useful but unremarkable contributors to the galactic community. They were polite enough, but Elena often caught the subtle signs of condescension in their interactions. The Zephyrians, with their tall crystalline forms and naturally occurring bioelectric fields, considered themselves the pinnacle of technological evolution. Their representative, Zixtar, frequently made comments about how humans were still learning to harness basic energy principles. The collective world sent Dr. Mulvin, an insectoid whose compound eyes could process information at speeds that made human computers seem sluggish. Even the normally diplomatic Centauri delegates would pause conversations when humans entered the room as if waiting for the less advanced species to catch up. Commander Thane Carell, the human military advisor on the project, had noticed the same patterns. Unlike Elena's scientific approach, Thane observed social dynamics and strategic implications. He was a quiet man who preferred to listen rather than speak, which the other species interpreted as either lack of understanding or simple deference. To superior intellects, they couldn't have been more wrong. During the daily briefings, Thane would sit in the back corner, his weathered face impassive as various species presented their latest breakthroughs. The Zephyrians had developed energy matrices that could theoretically deflect plasma weaponry. The collective had created computational models that predicted shield efficiency with remarkable accuracy. The Centauri contributed materials that could withstand temperatures hot enough to melt small moons. Elena appreciated these advances, but something nagged at her scientific instincts. The aliens were so focused on creating the most sophisticated, most powerful solutions that they seemed to miss fundamental principles. She kept her observations to herself, knowing that questioning the approaches of species with thousands of years of technological advancement would only invite more dismissive looks. The research station buzzed with activity as the energy shielding project neared its first major testing phase. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what many hoped would revolutionize defensive capabilities for all civilized worlds. Admiral Creshani, a imposing Zephyrian with bioelectric patterns that constantly shifted across her crystalline skin, arrived with great fanfare to oversee the military applications. Elena was reviewing energy consumption data when the first anomalous readings appeared on her screen. Deep space monitoring stations had detected unusual energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim. The readings were unlike anything in the databases, showing patterns that seemed almost alive in their complexity and unpredictability. She brought the data to Dr. Mulvin, whose compound eyes immediately began processing the information at superhuman speeds. The insectoid's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of concern in his spec. "Ice. This is most irregular," Dr. Mulvin said, his translated voice carrying an undertone of unease. "The energy signatures appear to be moving with purpose, but they do not match any known spacecraft or natural phenomena." Zixtar examined the readings with typical Zephyrian confidence. His bioelectric field pulsed in patterns that Elena had learned indicated either deep thought or mild irritation. "Clearly some form of previously unknown energy-based life form," he announced. "We should easily be able to analyze and categorize them using our superior scanning technology." Admiral Creshani ordered the station's most advanced sensors to focus on the approaching signatures. Within hours it became clear that whatever was heading toward civilized space was massive in scale and growing stronger as it moved through various star systems. Elena spent her time creating detailed charts of the energy signatures' behavior patterns. While the aliens focused on determining the technological capabilities of these entities, she noticed something else entirely. The signatures seemed to pulse and fluctuate in response to the scanning attempts. Each time the station's advanced sensors probed the entities, their energy levels increased. Commander Thane was studying tactical implications when Elena shared her observations with him. They had developed a comfortable working relationship based on mutual respect for careful analysis over flashy conclusions. "They're reacting to our scans," Elena said quietly, showing him her data correlation charts. "Every time we hit them with advanced sensor technology, they seem to get stronger." Thane examined the patterns with a strategist's eye. "What if they're feeding on the energy from our scanners? High-powered sensors put out significant energy signatures of their own." Elena felt a chill run down her spine as the implications became clear. If they re-energy-based life forms that consume technological emissions, then everyone's advanced technology makes them stronger, Thane finished, and the more sophisticated the tech, the more appealing the target. They brought their theory to the research team's attention, but their concerns were dismissed with the polite tolerance typically reserved for well-meaning but misguided subordinates. Zixtar was particularly condescending in his response. "Humans have such active imaginations," he said, his bioelectric field pulsing in what Elena had learned was amusement. "These are clearly just natural reactions to our superior scanning techniques, revealing their true nature. Our technology is far too advanced for primitive energy beings to comprehend, much less exploit." Dr. Mulvin agreed, though more diplomatically. "While your pattern recognition is adequate for your species, you must understand that our analytical capabilities far exceed human limitations. We have determined that these entities pose no significant threat to advanced civilizations." Admiral Creshani was equally dismissive. "If these creatures present any danger, our military technology will easily neutralize them. Zephyrian warships are powered by energy sources these primitives cannot possibly understand or affect." Elena and Thane exchanged glances but said nothing more. They continued their quiet observations, documenting patterns that others seemed determined to ignore. The entities continued their approach toward civilized space, and their energy signatures grew stronger with each passing day. Elena's monitoring showed that they were now clearly responding to technological emissions from multiple star systems, drawn like moths to increasingly brighter flames. When the first contact occurred, it wasn't with the research station. The entities reached the outer colonies of the Zephyrian Empire, systems defended by the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. The results were catastrophic. Admiral Creshani's bioelectric field flickered with patterns Elena had never seen before as reports flooded in from the outer systems. Entire fleets of Zephyrian warships had been drained of power in minutes. Planetary defense grids that had protected worlds for centuries went dark simultaneously. The entities didn't destroy the technology so much as drain it completely, leaving behind empty shells of metal and crystal. "This is impossible," Zixtar insisted, his previously confident demeanor cracking. "Our energy matrices should be immune to such primitive absorption techniques." Dr. Mulvin's compound eyes were processing information so rapidly that they created a visible blur. "The computational models show no precedent for this type of energy drain. These entities appear to be operating outside all known physical laws." Elena watched the chaos unfold around her, with growing dread and a terrible sense of vindication. The entities were doing exactly what she and Thane had predicted, but she took no satisfaction in being right about something so devastating. The research station itself soon appeared on the entity's trajectory. Long-range sensors showed multiple energy signatures approaching their location, drawn by the massive technological emissions from the station's advanced research equipment. Panic spread through the facility as representatives from various species demanded immediate evacuation. The most advanced ships in the galaxy prepared to flee, their crews confident that their superior technology would allow them to outrun these mysterious entities. Elena stood in the observation deck watching the evacuation preparation. When Thane joined her, the commander's face was grim as he watched alien vessels powering up their most sophisticated engines and defensive systems. "They still don't understand," he said quietly. "Every bit of advanced technology they activate, is like sending a dinner invitation to those things. Elena nodded, her scientist's mind still analyzing patterns even in the face of disaster. The entities aren't just randomly draining energy, they're specifically targeting the most advanced technology first. It's like they can sense the complexity and sophistication of different systems. As if to prove her point, the first evacuation ships to leave the station were immediately swarmed by energy entities. The vessel's advanced propulsion systems, sophisticated shields, and powerful weapons made them irresistible targets. Within minutes, the ships were floating dead in space, their crews trapped in unpowered hulks. The remaining aliens watched in horror as their technological superiority proved to be their greatest vulnerability. Admiral Creshani's bioelectric field was now pulsing in patterns that Elena recognized as fear and confusion. "What do we do?" Dr. Mulvin asked, his translated voice stripped of its usual confident precision. "Our technology is useless against these entities. Worse than useless, it's actively dangerous." For the first time since Elena had known him, Zixtar looked genuinely uncertain. The Zephyrian's crystalline form seemed dimmer, as if his own bioelectric field was running at reduced power to avoid attracting attention. Elena looked at Thane, seeing her own thoughts reflected in his expression. The other species had spent so long dismissing human capabilities that they had never bothered to understand what those capabilities actually were. Now, faced with a threat that made their advanced technology a liability, they were finally ready to listen. But would it be too late? When quiet speaks loudest, Elena stepped forward into the center of the research station's main briefing room, aware that every alien eye was now focused on her with an intensity she had never experienced before. For months, she had been the quiet human who analyzed data while others made grand pronouncements. Now, with their advanced technology rendered worse than useless, the galaxy's most sophisticated species were looking to her for answers. "The entities are energy-based life forms that feed on technological emissions," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the crisis surrounding them. "The more advanced and energy-intensive the technology, the more attractive it is to them. Our advantage isn't in our advanced systems, it's in our simpler ones." Admiral Creshani's bioelectric field pulsed with patterns Elena now recognized as skepticism mixed with desperation. "You're suggesting we abandon our technological superiority? That's absurd. How could primitive human methods possibly succeed where our advanced systems have failed?" Thane moved to stand beside Elena, his military bearing commanding attention even from species that had previously dismissed him. "Because we've learned to solve problems with minimal resources. When you have unlimited technological power, you tend to use overwhelming force for every solution. When your resources are limited, you learn to be creative." Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the energy signatures of various technologies throughout the station. The aliens watched as she highlighted the massive emissions from their advanced systems compared to the relatively tiny signatures from human equipment. "Look at the pattern," she said, pointing to the data streams. "The entities are drawn to high-energy emissions like predators following the scent of prey. But low-energy simple technology barely registers on their senses." Dr. Mulvin's compound eyes focused on the display with intensity. "You're proposing we use inferior technology against superior beings? The computational model suggests this approach has minimal probability of success." "Your computational models are based on the assumption that more advanced technology is always better," Elena replied. "But what if the opposite is true in this situation? What if simplicity is our advantage?" To demonstrate her point, Elena activated a basic human scanner, a device so primitive by galactic standards that most aliens would have considered it a historical curiosity. The scanner used minimal power and produced barely detectable emissions, yet it successfully mapped the energy signatures of the approaching entities without attracting their attention. Meanwhile, every time the station's advanced sensors attempted to gather similar data, the entities immediately changed course toward the emission source, forcing the crew to shut down the systems before the creatures could lock onto their location. Zixtar's bioelectric field flickered with what Elena had learned was reluctant consideration. Even if your primitive scanners can detect these entities without attracting them, how does that help us defend against or escape from them? Elena looked at Thane, who stepped forward to address the military implications. Human military doctrine has always emphasized adaptability and resource efficiency. We've developed strategies for fighting superior forces using unconventional tactics. Thane activated a simple projection system to show the station's layout. The device was so basic that it used mechanical components and required minimal electronic systems, making its energy signature nearly invisible to the entities. The key is not to fight these creatures directly, Thane explained. It's to become uninteresting to them. We need to power down all advanced systems and switch to the simplest technology possible. Make ourselves invisible to their energy-based senses. Admiral Kresshani's patterns showed clear agitation. You're asking us to blind and disable ourselves. How can we navigate or communicate without our systems? Elena smiled for the first time in days. The same way humans did for thousands of years before we developed advanced technology. The same way we still do when our advanced systems fail. She began explaining concepts that seemed almost magical to the aliens. Celestial navigation using star positions, mechanical calculation devices, chemical-based communication systems, and manual control mechanisms. To species that had relied on sophisticated technology for millennia, these approaches seemed impossibly primitive. Dr. Mulvan's mandibles clicked rapidly. These methods would require extensive manual calculation and direct observation. The margin for error would be enormous compared to our precision instruments. But the entities won't detect us, Elena pointed out, and we can still function, even if it's not as efficiently as you're used to. The debate continued for hours, with most aliens reluctant to abandon the technological advantages that had made their species dominant forces in the galaxy. It was only when the energy entities began closing in on the station itself that desperation finally overcame pride. Elena and Thane worked frantically to retrofit the station's essential systems with simple, low-energy alternatives. They replaced sophisticated environmental controls with basic mechanical systems. Navigation computers gave way to manual calculation methods and direct observation. Communication arrays were shut down in favor of simple radio transmissions that barely registered above background cosmic radiation. The process was chaotic, with alien crew members struggling to adapt to manual controls and simplified interfaces. Zixtar's bioelectric field dimmed to barely perceptible levels as he learned to operate basic instruments with his manipulator appendages rather than interfacing directly with advanced systems. Admiral Kresshani proved surprisingly adaptable, quickly mastering manual navigation techniques that human sailors had used for centuries. Dr. Mulvan's analytical mind, freed from dependence on computational models, began recognizing patterns through direct observation. As the station's advanced systems powered down one by one, something remarkable happened. The approaching energy entities began to lose interest, their trajectory shifting away from the station toward more appealing targets. The massive research facility, once a beacon of technological sophistication, had become effectively invisible to creatures that fed on advanced energy emissions. Elena monitored the entities' movements using her basic human scanners, tracking their progress as they moved toward systems still broadcasting high-energy technological signatures. It was heartbreaking to watch entire civilizations become feeding grounds for the creatures, but the data was invaluable for understanding their behavior patterns. They're not malicious, Elena realized as she studied the patterns. They're just following their nature, like any predator seeking food sources. To them, our advanced technology looks like the galaxy's richest feeding ground. Thane was analyzing the strategic implications of this discovery. If we can understand their feeding patterns, we can predict where they'll go next, maybe even guide them away from inhabited systems. Working together, the human-alien team developed a comprehensive strategy for dealing with the energy entities. The solution wasn't to fight them directly, but to make civilized space less appealing while providing alternative feeding sources in uninhabited regions. Elena's scientific analysis revealed that the entities could be attracted to artificially created energy emissions in empty space. By setting up simple but energy-intensive beacons in uninhabited star systems, they could draw the creatures away from populated worlds. Thane's military planning addressed the tactical challenges of implementing this strategy across the galaxy. It would require unprecedented cooperation between species, with everyone agreeing to power down advanced systems temporarily while the redirection beacons were deployed. The aliens who had initially dismissed human capabilities were now eager students, learning techniques they had never needed before. Zixtar became surprisingly proficient at manual calculations, his crystalline mind adapting to work without electronic enhancement. Admiral Creshani discovered that her natural bioelectric field could be dampened to avoid detection while still maintaining essential physiological functions. Dr. Mulvin found that his compound eyes, freed from dependence on computer-enhanced analysis, could perceive patterns in the entity's behavior that sophisticated algorithms had missed. The insectoid's natural analytical abilities, unfiltered by technological assumptions, provided insights that proved crucial to understanding the creatures. As word of the human-developed strategy spread throughout the galaxy, species that had never given humans a second thought began requesting assistance. Elena found herself leading teams of alien scientists who were eager to learn primitive techniques that could keep them alive. Thane coordinated with military leaders from dozens of species, teaching them strategies based on simplicity rather than technological superiority. The quiet human commander who had been ignored in previous briefings was now the most sought-after tactical advisor in the galaxy. The operation to redirect the energy entities took months to implement and required sacrifices from every participating species. Advanced civilizations had to temporarily abandon the technological luxuries they had relied upon for generations, learning to function with simple, low-emission alternatives. But the strategy worked. Slowly but steadily, the entities were drawn away from inhabited systems toward the energy beacons positioned in empty space. The creatures found abundant feeding sources without threatening civilized worlds, establishing a balance that allowed both species to coexist. In the aftermath of the crisis, the galaxy's perception of humanity changed dramatically. Species that had once viewed humans as unremarkable junior partners now recognized the value of adaptability and creative problem-solving. The quiet observations that had been dismissed as primitive thinking were now understood as sophisticated analysis, unencumbered by technological assumptions. Elena returned to her research on energy shielding, but now her work incorporated insights from multiple species who had learned to appreciate simpler approaches. The final shield designs were elegant combinations of advanced alien technology and human principles of efficiency and adaptability. Thane was promoted to head the new Galactic Strategic Response Division, tasked with developing contingency plans for threats that couldn't be solved through technological superiority alone. His approach emphasized flexibility, resourcefulness, and the kind of creative thinking that came naturally to humans but had to be learned by other species. The research station resumed its mission of galactic cooperation, but now with a deeper understanding of what each species truly brought to the partnership. The Zephyrians contributed their advanced energy manipulation capabilities. The collective worlds provided computational power and analytical precision. The Centauri offered materials science and engineering expertise. And humans. They contributed something that couldn't be replicated by any technology, no matter how advanced: the ability to find simple solutions to complex problems, to adapt when systems failed, and to succeed through creativity rather than raw power. Elena stood in the same observation deck where she had watched the crisis unfold, but now the view was different. Ships from dozens of species moved through space using hybrid technology that combined advanced capabilities with simple, efficient designs. The galaxy had learned that being quiet didn't mean being weak, and that sometimes the most profound solutions came from the most unexpected sources. The energy entities still roamed the outer reaches of space, but they were no longer a threat to civilization. They fed on the beacon systems, content with their artificial energy sources, and no longer drawn to inhabited worlds. The galaxy had found a way to coexist with creatures that had once seemed impossible to defeat. As Elena prepared for her next research project, she reflected on how much had changed. Humans were no longer the quiet ones sitting in the corner of galactic meetings. They were recognized as essential partners whose unique perspectives and problem-solving abilities made them invaluable members of the galactic community. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and Elena knew that more challenges lay ahead. But now she was confident that when those challenges arose, the galaxy would face them together, drawing on the strengths of every species, and the unique wisdom that came from being underestimated, overlooked, and ultimately, unexpectedly essential. Sometimes the loudest voice in the room was the one that chose to speak quietly, and humanity had finally found its voice among the stars.